of the Vedas, right? Just like you cannot undermine the science of Jyotishya Shastra, and as the follower of Sanatan Dharma, naturally you cannot minimize, undermine, slander the philosophy of Ayurveda. So therefore, here, when we study Ayurveda, what does it teach? I'm not going to get into the technical details of it, but just the application of it. Ayurveda, the psychology of Ayurveda or psychology and Ayurveda are integrated. Manasa, Sharira and Vacha. They are not separated from each other. In the modern medicine, if you talk to the typical doctor who is dealing with your physical body, for them, focusing on the disease, the symptom of the disease, certain history of the disease, and then giving you medicine. Right? Whether you come from a ghettos or whether you come from a high-rise building in South Mumbai, they go by the symptoms of the disease and the medicine is given. You don't need to know the history of their mind. You don't need to know the history of their upbringing. You don't need to know the history of their food habits and everything. They do not get deeply into that. Right? But the fascinating concept of Ayurveda, what does it do? It does not separate the mind, intellect, ego, the body, and Purva Karma. They are integrated. They are operating simultaneously. Therefore, certainly, it does speak about the mind, but does not get into the details of Manasika Chikitsa. Like the psychologist, like the psychiatrist, you will not find. No. It's a harmonious existence of all levels of reality. Another beauty of Ayurveda dealing with the conscious mind. In the modern world, the psychological problem, the psychiatric problem, you only deal with them when they are manifesting the problem. Right? Somebody is feeling depressed, somebody is feeling psychological disorder, different kinds of symptoms are there. When you manifest them, then you go to a doctor, work on it. Right? But Ayurveda, what does it do? From a foundation principle itself, unconsciously, for you, for the client, for the person, it is unconscious, but the system is very conscious to deal with your mind from very childhood, so that you don't need to go to the separate doctor. And therefore, the Mahabharata explains very simple logic how mind and body are not separated from each other. This is a beautiful example is given that if body is like a clay pot, a body is like a clay pot, and a rock, big pebbles or rock, it is like a mind. When you take these rocks from outside, heated up rock, especially during the summer season, or you heated that rock in the fire, if you take that rock and place it in the clay pot, what does it do? Or a copper pot, the pot also becomes hot. Or you heat up the pot and then you place the rock inside, even the rock becomes very hot. Why? Because the rock and pot apparently non-connected to each other, but the rock, the mind, is also part of our entire system, the body. So therefore, simple thing, when a child was born, there were certain functions, where the child was given the honey with a golden small stick-like thing, Suvarna Pasha, on a particular nakshatra. When the child is given, you don't know what's going to happen. It's a small thing done with ceremony. Or piercing the ear of a child, or feeding the butter and the crystal sugar. Like people would say, "Arey, usko butter khilao taki aur naughty hai na, theek ho jayega." If you pierce the ears, it will make you study. Applying the oil, just see, regularly you're applying the oil on your head. While resting, you're applying some oil on your soul. Then you're applying kajal in your eyes. What happens? That it is a physical act. Feeding you butter, applying oil, applying kajal. All this thing is a physical act, piercing the ears. But within that physical act, the great sages have placed upon certain principle through which you'll experience stable mind, steady intelligence, and evolved ego. Evolved ego. I remember talking to somebody, this was near Kolhapur. So this man said he knew one village where one of the elders of the village, the landlords, big landlords, they would provide a fresh cow's milk, after whichever days the newborn baby is supposed to take. When that cow's milk with proper sankalpa is given to newborn baby, the child would never develop taste for drinking liquor. वो स्वाद उसके जिह्वा पे कभी भी नहीं आएगा. So the question is raised: is it the value system which made that child stay away from the liquor, or is it the taste which a child developed made the child stay away from liquor? Right? We know the story of that great Yamunacharya. He had become extremely materialistic because he had been appointed as the king. But there was that element of Sattva Guna. So Yamunacharya's grandfather, he sent one of his students, giving him this task of retransforming his grandson. And what did he do? He did not preach to him. He offered him Tuduvallai leaves, plucking them nicely, offering certain mantras, and then cooking it in the kitchen without speaking anything. And eventually, when the knowledge came to Yamunacharya, there was a transformation. And therefore, it is very important. Ayurveda always takes body as the reference point to deal with the mind, intelligence, and ego. Because what can you tell a 5-year-old child? What can you tell a 40-year-old man who is acting like a 5-year-old child? You can't give them the philosophy because they cannot handle the philosophy, because they do not have enough resources to handle this deep knowledge. Right? Therefore, what is it? If the body is the reference point, through oil, through food, through different kinds of marks, you develop a greater impact in your inner reality. When that inner reality is transformed, which is transforming without you knowing anything about it, you never question, you never experience, or you never tell your family members that I'm going through depression. Just go back 50 years ago, go back 40 years ago, and see what kind of food habits people had, what kind of habits they had in their childhood. Connection to the soil, connection to the sky, connection to the moonlight, connection to the sunlight, connection to different kinds of herbs in the meal also, in certain rituals also. When a child and the family are going through these rituals regularly while performing their other duties also, you would never hear from people talking about depression. Imagine how far we have gone away from this seamless, impactful reality. No money, no discourses, but it was part of your life. Right? So therefore, when Ayurveda deals with roga, what does it do? It talks about different kinds of rogas. One is intrinsic and extrinsic. The extrinsic roga is krimi caused by krimi, bacteria. That is infection and infestation. Second, epidemics, janapadodbhamsa, caused by the people, epidemics. This is in the Charaka. Kalakrita means environmental, right? Now, environmental does not only create physical challenges, it creates the mental challenges also. Regional, Daishika means regional, because change of weather in some particular area. If you're in the Himalayan mountains, being born in a more tropical area, there is a problem with acclimatization. Then next one, Ayurveda says, Vyavasayagat, occupational, right? In this occupational, in this occupational hazard, you can see where you work 16 hours, you work 18 hours, you work 19 hours, you work away from the family. So it is but natural, however strong you are, it will cause difficulties. Latrogenic, Vaishyakrita. And the next one, it talks about possession by subtle entities. This is, I am not speaking, imagine such an integration in the modern medicine. Now they talk, professional, but they don't get into deep reality. They don't. Because they can't, because they're not trained in this regard. Possession by subtle entity will be laughed at. You're talking about subtle entities. What is the subtle entities? So these are called as extrinsic, external realities. So what do they do? The possession of subtle entities, occupational hazard, regional, environmental, when they become prolonged, they do impact your mind also. And therefore, our great teachers, what they did was, they slow doses they gave in a positive sense. And because they're giving that slow dose, little by little, little by little, little by little, you are associating with rice. Your mind is good. You're associating with haldi. Your immunity becomes very powerful. You're associating with cow dung. You're associating with gomutra. I remember where I stayed, behind my Gully, we used to call as gully, different gullies, right? Ramdev Gully, Samadev Gully. And just behind that gully, there was Gavali Gully. Gavali means coward men. So the entire road was connected to them. So you are smelling the cow dung also. How many people get to take the fragrance of first rain when it drops into the soil has amrita, right? The mridanga, mrid. The mrid word mridanga comes from what? Mitti, mritika. उस मृतिका में अमृत रखा हुआ है. There is amrit in that. That fragrance, when it enters into your nostril, it has the power to stabilize you, make you peaceful. How many people get to do that? Right? The simple process of dealing with nazar utarna. You read in the Mahabharata, you read in the Bhagavatam, you read Prabhupada's life also. It was a quite common thing where the mother would do with lot of affection. और एक माता एक शक्ति होने के कारण, just like Lord Ramachandra when he was living Ayodhya towards the forest, what did his mother do? Kaushalya, she went around 3 times. Pradakshina kiya. 1 pradakshina, 2nd pradakshina, 3rd pradakshina. You may wonder, how can mother go around her son? It is not correct. Mother cannot offer obeisances to her son. Mother cannot go around her son. Pradakshina केवल भगवान के लिए किया जाता है. Only for the Supreme Lord we do. What is this? One may ask this question. But the Ramayana explains, by going around Ram 3 times, she was putting a kavach of that motherly Shakti. Imagine, this is not at all taught. But nowadays, even the modern psychiatrists, they are using this theory of energies. It is not officially accepted, but nobody stops you from practicing this. Then there is intrinsic. What is that? Genetic. Bija, Vayava. Bija, genetics. Right? Imagine, now this is, how can you deal something happening genetically by simply superficial medicine? Then that genetic reality applies and appears as a constitutional reality, prakriti, right? And then digestive fire abnormalities, agni dosha, right? Agni dosha is one of the great understanding, because we believe that there is a fire lord, Vaishwanavaro Bhuta Praninam Deham Ashrita. He's sitting there. And then there is Koshta dosha, corrupted lumen of channels. And the next one is very interesting, separation of natural urges. Vega avarodha. When you are hungry, not eating. When you are supposed to respond to the call of nature, you are holding it back. You are supposed to sleep at 9:30, 10 o'clock in the night time, but you are staying up until 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Whether you have a duty as a security guard or no, staying up. Dietary, and because you suppress the natural urges, then your dietary changes. Ama is undigested substance of digestion accumulating in the body. Then age sometimes makes one crazy. And interestingly here, the great acharyas talk about gender, linga bheda. One may say linga bheda doesn't matter, right? Now you ask any girl or any boy, when our school I used to deal with these issues, whether you're a modern girl or a traditional girl, there is a distinction between how girls are given freedom and boys are given freedom. It is not that not trusting the girls. It is not trusting the society, the surrounding society, since time and immemorial, not in your years, now also you cannot trust. So therefore what happens, that gender bheda also gives rise to certain limitation both in the boys and girls differently. Boys because of the overconfidence, girls because of the underconfidence. But the problem appears almost the same. And then the last one, the Charaka says that past life actions, Purva Janma Krita, which medical world deals with the Purva Janma Krita? In the modern Ayurvedic colleges, they don't teach these things. They teach medicine, they teach herbs, they may teach little dietary, but they do not teach the subtle aspect of life. And when they don't teach that subtle aspect of life, what does it do? It certainly creates a trouble for one's harmonious growth. Right? Harmonious growth is happening on the negative side, little by little, little by little, little by little. Because the positive little by little is not happening, the negative little by little is happening. When the negative little by little is happening, then it has the power to create a prolonged trouble as we grow. And therefore Krishna, keeping the application principle of the Ayurveda intact, understanding the psychology of Ayurveda, because the Lord studied 64 days, and in 64 days he learned so many, education, so much of education. And therefore in the Bhagavad Gita, what does he do when he talks about Yukta Ahara, Yukta Vihara, Yukta Chestasu Karmasu, Yukta Swapnava Bodhasya Yoga Bhavati Dukkha? In the 6th chapter, in the form of yoga, what he is discussing, it is the most practical situation he talks about. Yukta Ahara, Yukta Vihara, Yukta Chestasu Karmasu. Is it possible to implement? Little by little, little by little, little by little. And in the 17th chapter, he talks about different kinds of food habits. Tapasya, Satya. He talks. When you follow that, at least some part of it, then what does it do? It has the power to transform your life. And therefore, the psychology of Ayurveda and psychology itself are not separated. They're one and the different. And the best part is Ayurveda was never a medicine. It is not that there are no medicine like that. It was never a system of dealing with the reactive behavior of the people. Emergencies were there, but the emergencies were very, very less. During the rainy season, you might get some viral fever. During the rainy season, you might get beaten by certain insects, scorpion and snake. These are very few emergencies. Now, the emergency has become normalized within our system. Rather than dealing with construction of the body, dealing with construction of the mind, dealing with construction of the ahankara, we are dealing with reaction because of the mind, dealing with reaction because of the ego, dealing with reaction of the buddhi, which affects our body because that is what we abuse. When we abuse that, and without the proper knowledge, what does it do? it causes a lot of trouble. Therefore, the Ayurveda, interestingly, what does it do? Again, as I said, it focuses on your physical reality. I was just telling somebody that there is a heart reality and there is a physical reality. Your heart may say, I don't want to do this because I'm practicing spirituality. Or I want to eat so much because I love eating. This is the reality of your Vega, your heart. But there is a physical reality. And if you focus on the physical reality while not being distracted and denying the philosophical reality, then that gives a great harmony in life. And therefore, the best part of the Ayurveda principle, when you read, again, it is the principle of what is your food habit? What is your environmental habit? What is your, puro samskaras? Right? What is your genetics? What is your connection to your surrounding family? If that is proper, then there is a greater chance that one will remain steady because the health is steady. There is a rhythm in life, just like a bicycle only. When you're driving, when you're riding on a bicycle, as much as you drive the bicycle with speed, that much the bicycle becomes steady. Why? Because steadiness only comes from rhythmic movement. If you just contemplate your body like a bicycle, and if you have not learned the art of riding bicycle properly, अगर कोई 2 kilometer without leaning left side or right side, either for circus or because of inefficiency, you cannot ride straight for 2 kilometers, there is something wrong with you. In regards to the art of riding bicycle, imagine our body like a bicycle, and we are the riders on that bicycle. And if you are repeatedly falling on the left side, on the right side, overexcited, underexcited, there is too much of excitement and there is too much of depression. So either excitement or depression. When you find somebody is overexcited, don't celebrate. You realize overexcitement ka parinam will be hardcore deep depression also, because both cannot be trusted upon, right? So therefore all hundreds of herbs, hundreds of pulses, varieties of rice. I remember listening to one talk by Guru Murthy explained, they were doing some research in one of the colleges that methi is very good for diabetic patients. And they realized when you plant the methi according to particular nakshatra, it could be Shatabhisha, it could be some healing nakshatra, then what does it do? That methi has a greater power as a medicinal impact, and it has the power to remove the diabetic. And when the diabetic goes away, your mind also becomes stabilized. When your mind is stabilized, then your relationship becomes very stabilized. Once your relationship becomes stabilized, then on your plate a responsible food will come. Not the husband is told by the wife, "Hey, find your own food," or the husband is going crazy about food so much, right? If everything is balanced, from the mind through the word and through the senses, then there is a greater chance for one to grow. So therefore, the most easier aspect is all these ingredients. I'll read some of them from one of these books by Vedic Counseling by Vamadev Shastri. Ashwagandha. What is it? Ashwagandha is an ingredient, but it has the power to remove insomnia, neurosis, anxiety, hyperactivity, stress, exhaustion. इमेजिन अश्वगंधा नियमित रूप से लेने से अगर ये सब जाता होगा, या आने के बारे में कभी चर्चा ही नहीं की, what would happen to your body or your mind, your intelligent mind was not known to people because they were trying to use all these ingredients in some form or other. So there was no need for discussion. Jatmamsi. What does it do? It improves intellect and mental clarity. Now one may say, yeah, mental clarity ho gaya, intelligence बढ़ गया, उससे how does it increase your value system? Bhagavatam read 4th canto when Kapil Muni and Narad Muni, Kapil Muni is discussing with his mother, Dehahuti. He talks about the characteristics of intelligence, man, buddhi. And one of the characteristics of a steady sleep, disciplined person, if he's sleeping nicely, so nidra gives rise to buddhi. And one of the quality of buddhi is kritanyata. हो गया ना? देखो, बुद्धि में sound material, and it is material. But when that buddhi is refined, through what? Through proper disciplined sleep. So it has the power to make you intelligent. And being intelligent, one of the quality will be kritanyata. Remind करना कि अरे आपने मेरे लिए किया था. Right in the forest, the elephant, when somebody passes in their herd, they have the facility of giving a burial to that elephant. And wherever they are, from whichever part of the area, on particular day, they come to remember the passing away of the family, one of their family member. How is it possible? Elephant having such, of course, elephant recognize. भगवान ने एलिफेंट को बुद्धि दिया है बहुत, इसलिए किसके पास बुद्धि है सही प्रकार से, तो naturally वो will remain steady. And how does it happen from? By taking certain herbal ingredients regularly, making part of your life. Brahmi, Brahmi oil was a quite common thing. Or Brahmi ingredient, what does it do? Brahmi does that increases memory, concentration and learning. अगर concentration है, वहाँ सम्मान है ना, simple. If you are respecting, you will concentrate. If you concentrate, that is accepted as a respect. And if there is a concentration and it is respect, it gives rise to submission to the knowledge. Want to submit to the knowledge, now knowledge become part of your system. And when the knowledge become part of your system, the way it has flown to you, then that knowledge does not make you proud. Rather, that knowledge makes you humble. Therefore, in many school textbook, they would write, Vijayi Bhava, Vinayi Bhava. And to become a Vijayi and Vinayi Bhava, you had certain ingredient always moving around you. Somebody sent a video of the boy who won the chess championship. I think within 6 months or 1 year, he defeated some grandmasters. और वो क्या करता था? He would always put budi on his head. And somebody, some news anchor, they photoshopped it and removed it. तो अगर आपके पास ऐसे लोग रहेंगे तो डिप्रेशन बढ़ेगा ही ना। कल क्या वीडियो एडिट करके नहीं निकालेंगे, लेकिन ये निकालेंगे। Imagine what kind of idea they have, right? And then there is go-to cola. It has relieve stress, insomnia, emotional disturbance, epilepsy, behavioral disorders. Shankapushpi, what does it do? Coherence of the nervous system improves, removes. Imagine all these ingredients. There are hundreds of such ingredients. I will not get into all the details of reading. You can figure out, find out. ये अगर वस्तुओं को दिनम प्रति नियमित रूप से यूज करने से it gives rise to such a confidence in us, we can stand by on our own feet. I was just reading some research. I just wrote an article. Maybe within 1 or 2 days we will release that article on the concept of eunuch, especially making artificially eunuchs. It's a gruesome history. When the children were very small, 7, 8, 9-year-old, they would be kidnapped from their family, or such children were taken as a hostage when the invading army of the Mughals, Turkey, these people, when they came, they would take children from this age. And these are not, you can read, limitless literatures are there. When you are separated from your family at the age of 8 or 9, after kidnapping them, then in some part of the world, in some part of the world, they would cut off the testicles or press the testicles. In some place along with pressing the testicles, they would cut the male organ, reproductive male organ. Now, and then after that, they were placed in the sand or a water for many, many hours to heal them. The survival percentage was 10 to 30. 70 people would be killed out of 100, 30 would survive. And they would become eunuch. One में से केवल उनके शरीर को अंग निकालने से जीवित रह गए तो क्या फर्क पड़ सकता है? What kind of transformation they would experience? The transformation they would experience is that they would be completely submissive to that master who took them as a slave or a eunuch. And they were placed in the most confidential places, where they could hear all the voices of the palace bickering, palace politics, the harem politics, the king going around with this person and that person. They would go so close to the king, but they would never overthrow the king. उनके अंदर पर्सनल एम्बिशन को निकाल दिया गया है. When you cannot reproduce, you cannot become ambitious for the legacy. So they were the best loyal people you could ever have. Never misusing the power, never misusing the powerful women folk. Because what will they do? उनके अंदर वो क्षमता को हटा दिया, उनको यूनक बना दिया. Right? And therefore Ayurveda, what does it do? It gives us the power not to be eunuch on intellectual level, on the mental level, and on the emotional level. When you become content for giving up your purushartha or your purushatva. Purushatva is not only quality of a man. Purushatva is basically ability to perform. Therefore, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita explains, I am the ability in man. Means women also. If that ability is given up, you become loyal, but there is nothing to contribute to the legacy of larger benefit to yourself. And therefore, hundreds and thousands of people were castrated to make them eunuch and keep them completely loyal to their master, to the extent where they would say, we don't care. We care only for the need of our master. So imagine, therefore, the foundation of Ayurveda, with all the technical knowledge you have, many, many books to read, many, many seminars to attend. But the foundation principle of Ayurveda is the maintenance of your system, the body, the mind, the vacha and ego, through simple formula of life, which is introduced to you or to me through daily doses of certain ingredients. You did not know the impact of it in the beginning. You did not even understand the consequences of those impacts which were created, because your life was seamless. I met one or two people, they never had headache in their life. They never had headache. So they don't know what headache is. So when somebody is going suffering headache, they can't appreciate what headache. Aisa kuch hota hai? Does it happen like that? So imagine if you have not experienced any limitation or experienced very less limitation, your life has been so beautiful seamlessly. What? Depression? What are you talking about? Atheism? What are you talking about? Because they cannot connect. From a positive perspective, they cannot. And so therefore, our great rishis and the Lord himself appeared as Dhanvantari to give that medicine. And therefore, while healing people, the Ayurveda uses the herb which is nothing but nectar for healing. There is the grace of Dhanvantari Rishi, and they also recommend to perform Dhanvantari Puja. So from the very beginning, Ragadi Roga, the greatest roga for a living entity is Raga, the attachment. And Lord Narayan is the Vaidya who removes all the Roga and establishes you in such a confident self, and that confident self with proper teacher and instruction can integrate his Adhyatma Jivan, his Manasik Jivan and his Sharirik Jivan, and eventually attain perfection. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments?
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Such simple practices, can impact us at such deeper levels. It's unbelievable. In fact, personally, what really connected with me was, modern science is more, trying to cure. But if these practices start early in life, they can avoid a lot of problems, especially at the mental level. Thank you very much. We have a question from LG. Yeah. Anupama ji, can you please ask your question by unmuting yourself?
Yes, thank you. Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhu, like you were talking about certain things, maybe sanskars and maybe other things that are done which have an impact. If in my life, I see that when I was young, we were more in touch with nature. I don't know about how many sanskars were done by my parents for me, but we were more in touch with nature. And like you were talking about depression, people didn't even know what that was. I can relate to that. But now, as I get older, for myself, I see there are some health issues, and I have been to Veds, all kinds of Veds, and they can't seem to make sense of it. And also, like, what can I do for myself, and what can I do for my children? They are absolutely out of touch with nature, and we seem to live in a very artificial world. What can be done, Prabhu? Hare Krishna.
Yeah, therefore again the Ayurveda doesn't give up hope. Even if there is medicine not working, they will discuss the philosophy. Therefore, we saw that Purva Janma Krita, seed, on every aspect there are solutions. So therefore, again, what does it say? If it not work, many Vaidyas, you integrate between Vaidya and Jyotish Shastra, see that what you can do, that will certainly help. Sometimes we have big loan, people have big loan. So one may not be able to pay all the loan. If it is 50 crores or 50 lakh rupees or $50,000, but even if you are able to make it $20,000 compared to 50, that is the progress only, because we accumulated a lot of this loan. So removing bit by bit and bringing it to lesser. So in your next lifetime, or next lifetime doesn't mean that next lifetime only. Next lifetime means could be 10 years, in 5 years, 3 years, you start experiencing much better stability. So minimizing the loss is also progress. Bringing it to neutral is also progress. Making it profitable is really greater progress. So therefore, we have to start somewhere depending upon how much we have accumulated. Same thing with the children also. If they are not able to do something, where through food, through certain colorful things, or certain aromatherapy, we can still create some positive transformation in their life. And therefore, one of the core principle of the Vedas is there: from chaos we come to order, from darkness we come to light, from death we come to immortality. If you see this Upanishadic verse, then it gives rise to great confidence and hope. Wow, doesn't matter how late it is, but I can start from some point of time, some point, and work on building it more and more. So therefore, never giving up. Hopelessness is not part of human psychology, natural psychology. It's a greater, it's like a haunting of a ghost only. Hopelessness. Oh, there is nothing else to do now. Oh, that's an end of the story. No, it is not an end of story. It's a beginning from some point of time, and raising by minimizing our limitation. Now, as much as we can minimize our limitations so that we can experience profit in our life. I think it, if it makes sense, we can try to do that.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. That was very hope-giving. In fact, I was detected by a skin disease 6 months back, and I went to an Ayurvedic doctor, and she told me about the food I need to eat, the kind of mental relaxation exercises I need to do. I tried acupressure, acupuncture, and this disease as such is not really cured by allopathy. And I can see changes in my, I'm able to overcome the disease to a large extent because of integrating many practices in my daily life. Thank you very much. Can I request Gailji to please unmute yourself and please ask your question?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, when you were giving this story about how the boys of 8, 9 years old were castrated and how that affects their, loyalty to their masters, I didn't catch how that actually related to us, whether man or woman. Can you try to repeat that for me?
Yeah, so basically, if you study, when your purushartha means the ability in man or woman, if that is taken away, then basically you don't have an identity. And when we destroy somebody's identity for them to grow independently but responsibly, it's a physical act, but it has the power to affect on somebody's conscious level, on their conscious level, on their mental level. The point which I was making, therefore the Ayurveda, what does it do? It through small things, from the early childhood, through small things, gives you the power beyond your imagination. When it gives you the power beyond imagination, when you are healthy from your childhood, then you can easily say, I don't care, I'm completely dependent on Krishna. And you are, because you have taken, like Arjuna, when Krishna came to him asking, what do you want, army or me? Why do you think Arjuna said, I want you, Krishna, not the army? Because any living entity in desperation would say, Krishna, I want you also, but I want your army also. And I can't. But why Arjuna said? Because Arjuna himself was very resourceful. He had the power to fight and destroy the 2 Akshohini Senya in one day. He had collected those resources from his childhood, living in the forest, living with less, so many times in the forest. So because they were self-sufficient, and therefore they had a greater confidence in Krishna. And therefore Prabhupada writes in one of the purports that what is one of the greatest trouble in this world is the over dependence on others' mercy. When there is an over dependence on other mercy, then instead of becoming a servant of God, you become burden to God. So here the talk I was saying, that was consciously practiced, that take away their ambition in life, their legacy, their family, right? If you take away your connection to your family, you take away your connection to your own growth, then why would you want to have a separate life other than the emperor or the king? They would do anything for the king. So king is benefited by them, but at the cost of destroying large number of families. That is the point I was trying to make.
You see, you said just now that a person like Arjuna, who was very resourceful, right?
Yes. Yeah.
He became very dependent on Krishna. Whereas somebody who, I guess, is not resourceful, he becomes a burden to Krishna. Right? So my question is, I'm trying to understand this connection. Why would a person who feels self-sufficient become dependent on Krishna? I would think that it would create opposite effect. Maybe more such a person would become more prideful.
So therefore you have to read properly. Yada yada dharmasya glani. It is very rare souls who can stand by the reversal and continue to practice spirituality. Somewhere they will start asking, God give me this, God give me that, God give me this. It's a human psychology to ask from God. And if he does not give, then they tend to be angry with God. And therefore what Krishna has done through all the systems, Ayurveda is coming from him. Astrology, Vastu Shastra is coming from him. Jyotish Shastra is coming from him. Yoga Shastra is coming from him. And therefore in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it tells Arjuna, Yukta Ahara, Yukta Vihara, Yukta Chesta Sukarmasu. The whole, if the material world was not so important, why would the Lord appear again and again? Yada yadai dharmasya glani. Whenever there is decline, he would come down. Right? Why? To create a stability. If there is a stability with proper samskaras, you would never become arrogant. There is a resource given by Divya Shakti of the Lord and resources collected by the wrong energies. The Rakshasas, they are resourceful, but they don't have gratitude. Devatas are resourceful, and whenever they have a trouble or they don't have a trouble, part of their life, they're always dedicated. Take the examples of the Pandavas, they're the best example. Whether it is Gita or Bhagavatam is all connected to Pandava's family only. Right? In their difficult times, they collected the resources while keeping the Lord in their heart. And in their good times, they still connected to Krishna. But what was Krishna's goal in their life? To provide them resources. The intellectual resources, the mental resources, the physical resources, the relationship resources. No? With that proper samskaras, you will not become proud. Rather, you will realize Einstein was one of the humble person, because he realized, oh God, I know so less. But an ordinary scientist who knows very little, he says, I don't believe in God. So yes, what you are saying is correct. Those resourceful people without right understanding, they'll always be proud of their little resources. But somebody who has the proper resources, born out of proper background, will never be proud.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Very well explained. And as you also mentioned in your talk that, when you concentrate, you acquire knowledge and you acquire humility also in the process. Yeah. Thank you very much. Gauraji, can you please ask your question?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. My question was, you mentioned about how methi and the way it's grown can affect, and like that nowadays a lot of these herbs are herbal extracts are being used, like ashwagandha or ashwagandha extract or tulsi drops. So you think Ayurveda promotes even these highly processed one variants, or is it more better to have more pure forms like tulsi leaves or the dried patte or ashwagandha just in powder form or even the extract form and all? What would your view be?
See, therefore, one of the principle of varnashram life is not outsourcing, certain thing which you are supposed to do. Now, what is happening? The marriage function, for example, the entire management is outsourced. But this is the part where the family is to play, where they would take that responsibility rather than outsourcing it. They will make it inner sourcing. Right? So you're doing all outsource, then the liquor and drugs and all kinds of nonsense is inner source. So that will not work. So when you buy something from a larger factory produce, processed one, it is like a modern medicine. It will have some impact. But when you take the responsibility, if you have a small farm or if you have a small house, you grow a few items, and therefore, again, in the Bhagavatam, Krishna every day regularly would plant the trees during the birthday celebration, rather than throwing flowers here and there without even contributing in growing the flower. If you celebrate, whether it is Krishnizing birthday or regular birthday, but the process of celebration is the same. If the process is changed, making it more natural, where the child is, learning the art of planting some nice herbal, whether it is kadi patta in your house, whether it is chili in your house, small thing. If everybody does like that, even 10% of the population, that 10% has the power to become self-sufficient. No? Otherwise, everything is, oh, I want to buy from outside. That will not work. So the gauli, the milkman, would have a direct connection with the milkman rather than through certain factory. So if you cannot do that, I'm not saying that one should not take only. Somewhere 2%, 3%, 4%. Increase the percentage of your contribution and connection to nature and these herbs. That much it is more, and it's a pure mathematics. No, Depending on what percentage you take, that percentage it will transform your life. There is no miracle in this regard. What is it is? It is experiencing the truth as it is mathematically, benefiting you systematically.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. I think in cities where we live, it is quite possible to grow some plants in your balcony or in your veranda. Thank you very much. I think that also answers Rohit Prabhu's question. He says that if you have developed a bad habit, what are the ways we can overcome these habits? So maybe some of these practices we can start doing.
Very little. There's no harm.
Thank you.
No need to be hopeless for anything.
Thank you very much. Diptiji, can you please ask your question? Can I ask Rituji to please ask a question?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for the wonderful lecture and insightful lecture as always. Prabhu, I'm asking this question on behalf of one of my acquaintances. He has a severe problem of insomnia, and he has been through, many different treatments like Ayurveda, like the Ashwagandha that you were talking about, and also through homeopathic treatments and many other types of treatments and allopathic treatment as well. And eventually one of the doctors suggested to him that, take a small amount of alcohol at night before going to bed, like a glass of wine or something. And so now the dilemma that this person has is that interferes with his vow of chanting 16 rounds. But that path seems to help him. So Prabhuji, what should this person do in this situation? Should they continue to look for more Ayurvedic solutions, more that are in alignment with his spiritual practice of chanting 16 rounds every day?
This can be discussed privately, because certain questions, because in Ashtanga Hridaya, I have this book here. I'm showing Ashtanga Hridaya. It is not my book. It is written by the great Vagbhatta. If you read Vagbhatta's writing, in the Ayurveda also there are certain fermented ingredients which can be called as intoxicant from the modern perspective. Therefore, modern world categorizes everything. When they categorize this is intoxicant, this is not intoxicant, that becomes very troublesome, right? So therefore, depending on who is the patient, what is his problem, what is he going through, and if the medical practitioner is responsible in giving that advice, who is the person who is giving the advice, why is he giving that advice, so that all become very pertinent, very important. So therefore I cannot say yes, I cannot say no. It again has to be discussed with more privately with that person and work on, so that rather than becoming mad, if somebody has to go through crazy because of the insomnia, then sometimes poison is also amrit only. What to speak of fermented ingredients? I don't want to use the word liquor, so that is the point. So therefore again, I'm not taking any responsibility, he should try, but I'm just giving.
I understand.
Ashtanga Hridaya does talk about taking madhya, but for whom, on what context? Because the problem is that when people take certain intoxicated ingredient, they become controlled by that. Then you get a sleep, but you develop a different depth of ignorance. So that who will take that responsibility? The doctor will take the responsibility, the patient will take responsibility.
Sure, I understand, Prabhu. Prabhu, can I suggest that person? How can that person reach you directly in a private manner?
Yeah, we can. Our team has, they can take that question and we can work on it.
Okay. So should I send the question to Priya Chaitanya Prabhu then?
Yeah, right.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Can I request Dipti ji to ask a question?
Take last question.
Yeah. I think maybe Diptiji is having some problem in accessing.
Okay, we'll stop here. Next.
Yeah. Thank you very much,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Yeah, yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Am I audible, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
Yeah, Prabhuji, I have joined in a little late, so I don't know if you have covered this point. But I joined in at a point where you said that you have, when you are following some Ayurvedic thing in the family relationship and the family environment has a lot of role to play in it. And so, and then you said that there are times where you are overexcited or over depressed, you know. So I have been experiencing this kind of an emotion of lately also. So I could not understand the point where what you were saying. How does a family play the family relationship has an impact on what all you are doing? You know, that I just missed on that point, Prabhuji.
Certainly, because every, if you study the purpose, the cause of the disease given by our Charaka Samhita and quoted in this book, it talks about genetics also, your environment also. रोग के अलग-अलग कारण है. So sometime if the family has the maturity to handle our troubles, excitement or anxiety in a proper way, then rather than the problem being aggravated, it's like nip in the bud. And therefore one of the trouble where the patients go through, where they make this statement, my family doesn't understand me. They don't understand. So when somebody does not understand you, especially with those who are close to your family, then the frustration gives rise to greater impact of our excitement and anxiety. But if the family is basically able to acknowledge, understand, facilitate, work around it, then you find that support. Not that you should make them as your crutch, but support. They are not the wall, they are the wheel. No? So in the wheel, you have to put an efforts to move around, but they are the wheel and you are the driver. But in the wall, the wall is not moving and you are not also moving. That's how the understanding goes. So probably this forum that you are doing, and of lately I happen to be there in the GEV also, and then the moment I go there, I'm so excited to be with nature. But when you come back to the urban city, everything is again topsy-turvy. So then, because the people around you are not equally as nature loving as you may be, then in this situation, how do you get out of it? How do you balance that? You see, again, GV or any such nature-centric projects, they are like a college. Not everybody can settle down there. Yeah. Right? It is not a place for people to stay forever. Right? Why? Because, that's teaching you something so that you can implement. Yeah. So therefore, don't take shelter of that place for your permanent settlement. Okay. It is a place for you to inspire and come back and implement. Yeah. So when there is such a contradiction between what you experience and what you go, you're not supposed to go there for shelter. You are supposed to go there for learning. Your shelter is where you stay for prolonged time. Your home, your surrounding, that is your place of shelter. And that is a place for your, for your learning. So when you create such a contradiction between what you experience in any organic center and your place, so that also creates a great disparity between then you'll condemn this place, or you'll be excited to go. How much can you do that? Right? So you have to find something which is implementable for longer time in your own setup. No, you can be growing bring some plants from there. There is a nursery also. Grow something. if you find something Ashwata Vriksha, if there is close to your place, Ashwata Vriksha, one of the place where it is limitless energy is there, which helps on to, provide a lot of balance. So therefore, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami explains that one of the 64 items is to worship Ashwata Vriksha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for
We'll
this
stop
very
here.
simple and sublime messages. We meet next Tuesday again to understand how families can contribute to our development by looking at the lives of the Pandavas as we celebrate Nirjala Ekadashi next week. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Correct.